collision. Collision is a interaction between two bodies or an object or an atom or a molecule. So, collision is the interaction between two bodies for a short interval of time is called collision. Example, consider two bodies collide with each other. This region we will call collision. So, interaction between two bodies for a short interval of time is called collision. So, interaction between two bodies for a short interval of time is called collision. So, remember, consider two bodies A and B with masses m1, m2, moving with initial velocity u1, u2 before collision. When two bodies collide with each other, the masses m1 plus m2, then respectively mass m1, mass m2 moving with final velocity v1, v2 after collision. So, consider when two bodies A and B having masses m1, m2 moving with initial velocity u1 plus u2 before collision. When two bodies collide with each other, the masses m1 plus m2, then respectively mass m1, mass m2 moving with final velocity v1, v2 after collision. So, in collision there are two types. First one, elastic collision. Second one, inelastic collision. So, define elastic collision. So, a collision in which both momentum and kinetic energy is conserved is called elastic collision. So, elastic collision means a collision in which both momentum and kinetic energy is conserved. That collision we call elastic collision. Example, collision between atoms in gas. And another example, if you consider it is a water, you added or mixed some salt or any another solution, the water get reacted easily. So here the momentum and kinetic energy is conserved. So in this consider it is a water. If you added salt or any other solution, reacted. So in this, momentum and kinetic energy both conserved. So next type, inelastic collision. A collision in which only momentum is conserved but kinetic energy is not conserved. This type of collision we call inelastic collision. Example, bullet is fired at a block of wood. Or another example, if you hit a ball, ball to wall or table, the ball which comes back. I'll tell again. For another example, if you hit a ball to wall or a table, the ball which comes back. So there momentum is conserved but kinetic energy is not conserved. So second point, in elastic collision, the force involved in a collision are conserved. In inelastic collision, the force involved in collision are not conserved. So third point, in elastic collision, for a perfect elastic collision, the coefficient of restriction. First, the coefficient of restriction means the coefficient of restriction E equals the relative velocity, the ratio of relative velocity after a collision by a relative velocity before collision. So the coefficient of restriction is defined as E. The coefficient of restriction E equals the ratio of relative velocity after the collision by the relative velocity before collision. So E equals initial velocity u1 minus u2, the relative velocity of two bodies before collision. So the initial velocity u1 minus u2 are the relative velocity of two bodies before collision. So v1 minus v2 are the relative velocity of two bodies after collision. So E equals v1 minus v2 by u1 minus u2. So now in elastic collision, for a perfect inelastic collision, the coefficient of restriction is 1. So E equals 1 in elastic collision. In inelastic collision, the perfect inelastic collision for coefficient of restriction is 0. So in inelastic collision, E equals 0. Now once again I will repeat. So the collision means a interaction between two bodies for short interval of time. There are two types of collision: elastic collision, inelastic collision. So mainly elastic collision means A collision in which both momentum and kinetic energy is conserved. Inelastic collision means a collision in which only momentum is conserved but kinetic energy is not conserved. That type of collision we call inelastic collision. Second point, a force involved in the collision are conserved. So in elastic collision, the force involved in the collision are conserved. In inelastic collision, the force involved in the collision are not conserved. For a elastic collision, the coefficient of restitution is 1. So E equals 1. In inelastic collision, the coefficient of restriction is 0. So E equals 0.